Avatar 2 should have gone all in on immortal Quaritch. That's fix number 1. And let me just say before we get into this, I thought Avatar 2 was fine, about as good as Avatar 1, like 6 out of 10, but it's always pained me that these movies aren't better, because they're so pretty and they're all these okay story elements that just need a little push to be really great and compelling. And making this villain essentially unkillable is the first of those I want to talk about here. The character Quaritch in Avatar is pretty generic, pretty one-dimensional, gets the job done. The morality of these movies is supposed to be pretty black and white. All humans are supposed to be kind of simplistic unless they're sympathetic to the Na'vi cause. And I get that they want to bring an old name back from the dead and up the ante, so they made him an avatar, but that's kind of weak. It's a visual upgrade, more interesting aesthetically, but still not so interesting narratively, which might be a theme here. Who knows? We'll see. But the thing is, there's a great way to up the ante that they actually did, but they overlooked its full potential. They downloaded Quaritch into a new body once. That means they can do it again and again and again, no matter how many times Quaritch dies. This guy essentially exists in the cloud, and he will keep getting downloaded every single time he gets killed. Quaritch will lead this invasion forever, because like he says, you can't kill a Marine. Immortal Quaritch is the answer. If you're going to bring back a dead villain who as a character isn't that complex and interesting, at least make the threat he represents more complex and interesting. Have Neytiri kill him 2 or 3 times in this movie and they keep putting him into new bodies, and this ordinary commando officer guy becomes a symbol of the inevitability of colonialism. No matter how many times the Na'vi send them packing, Earth will keep coming back. No matter how many of their machines the Na'vi destroy, Earth will keep rebuilding and keep attacking. This makes the conflict more interesting, it makes the solutions more creative. It's a villain of the caliber that can carry multiple sequels. Quaritch, but blue is not. And it's especially weird that they didn't do this, because I feel like this is a very James Cameron type of upping the ante. It's the T-1000 essentially, taking a formidable villain and making him essentially invincible. And we can spend the entire story wondering how in the world are we going to kill this guy, until we do find some really cool and really fitting way to kill him for good. Makes for a lot of tension and a super exciting ending. And maybe what stopped this decision was Spider's climax scene, this dilemma over whether to save Quaritch's life, which would be impossible with immortal Quaritch. But luckily, that scene is expendable because it doesn't make much sense anyway. And on that note, let's talk about Spider next. I've heard a lot of people were unhappy with this character. I think the smallest adjustment to Spider that could have improved his arc so much, and again, I cannot believe that they didn't do this, is the following. Spider gets kidnapped. Quaritch needs to convince him to help in the search for the Sullys, but Spider naturally refuses. It's wrong. He has no incentive. So, what is the one thing they could offer this kid that might tempt him to betray his morals? The one thing that could raise the stakes way, way higher? The one thing that this Na'vi in a human body, this outcast human in a Na'vi society, might want more than anything in the universe? The one thing that might make him finally fit in with his Na'vi friends? What's the name of this franchise again? It's a tough one, right? You're asking me, what is the one thing that the Avatar movies could give this human who wants to be a Na'vi? So yeah, this is fix number 2. Quaritch tells his son, if you help us not to win the war, not to kill Na'vi people, no, just help us learn about our new Na'vi bodies, help us with translation in the search for the Tullys, we will make you your own Avatar body, and then you can be truly Na'vi. And if you want, you can go back to your Na'vi family and your Na'vi people and fight against us. By all means, go and frolic in your new blue skin. That gives us powerful and complex stakes underlying this decision to save his father in the end. Spider has to decide between what he's always wanted and what he knows to be right. It forces him to develop his understanding of what it means to be Na'vi. It's not about the blue, it's about you. It's not about the body, it's about the values, it's the philosophy, it's choosing life. It's about valuing the collective over the individual. That is a beautiful dilemma, beautiful stakes, and what a powerful sacrifice in the end. How did they not do that? Avatar is literally the name of the franchise. But fix number 3 is the secret, beautiful opportunity here with Spider. Because what we were essentially just talking about with the dilemma I suggested above is power. Power or lack of power is at the heart of Spider's character, because there's a huge reason this character is already compelling just in his design alone. Spider is inverse Jake Sully, a Na'vi in a human body, who comes from a world that is spiritually fulfilling but materialistically lacking. He has a relationship to a human that's full of tension, very different category of relationship from Jake and Neytiri, but Neytiri and Quaritch are surprisingly similar and offer similar opportunities. And again, opposite of Jake, Spider starts off seeing humans in a really black and white way. To him and all Na'vi people, human society is pure greed, indulgence, destruction, shallowness, hatred of nature, etc. There's potential for growth there, for transformation. And finally, similar to Jake in Avatar 1, Spider is pretty sure about ends, but craves adequate means to those ends. And in his pursuit of better means, maybe like Jake, he could experience a change in ends as well. So much potential there. And power is at the heart of all this, or rather powerlessness, the insecurity of lack of power, which is a very human flaw. But not only that, it's a flaw human society can address much better than Na'vi society. Humans have always been weaker than the nature surrounding surrounding them, but we have technology to rebalance the scales and beyond. That really should have been the basis all along of Spider's relationship with his father. Spider's life is full of what he sees as pathetic assurances of acceptance from other Na'vi people, with an underlying cold and universal rejection from them. There's so many things he cannot do. There are reasons people don't trust him. People make comments about him like we hear from Neytiri, and that deeply hurts him even though he tries to hide it. Maybe we see him opening up to Kiri about all of it, and she doesn't really understand because no one in his life understands. But Papa understands. Papa understands this incredibly human insecurity all too well. As things are now, Spider has this understandable but kind of generic curiosity about his father, because what orphan wouldn't? But that is not enough in my opinion. I think we absolutely need to deepen this relationship by giving it an underlying character basis and an underlying thematic basis. Because what would this character need his father for? In his conscious mind, he has a whole family, he has a whole village. What concrete thing would be lacking? Spider needs his father to be a human role model in his life, to solve human problems, and to guide him towards fulfillment with what he is, not what he wishes he was, not what he was raised to be, what he is. And Quaritch is so perfect for that. Quaritch is thrilled to be a human, even if he's blue right now. So Quaritch makes this offer to Spider that we mentioned earlier: help us and you can have your avatar. But secretly, Quaritch, that sly devil, is really using this whole Spider mission as an opportunity to expose his son to all the great things about being human, and teach him about the human cause, the plight of Earth. So instead of bonding over bird stuff like they have it now, we get these scenes of them bonding over the great stories of human triumph in war. Humans using their ingenuity to overcome their power deficiencies. Quaritch tells him about Hannibal and his elephants facing off against the greatest empire in the world. He tells him about the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, about Ethiopia's victory over colonial Italy in the First Italo-Ethiopian War, about Shaka Zulu and the heroic Impi who fought against the British, or even better, Archimedes and his war machines, his death ray that used mirrors to fry wooden ships, or his claw that grabbed ships right out of the water and capsized them, all invented with just the technological brilliance of his human mind. That scientific mind that makes our species so great, so dominant over anything and everything we fight against. Let that open the doors for the indoctrination of Spider. These inspiring stories of humanity can be what leads right into the situation Earth is in right now. Quaritch tells him that humans right now on Earth are suffering. People who were not involved in all these decisions that destroyed humanity's first planet. And these refugees need a new place to live. It's not their fault. They deserve a chance too, and Pandora has room. Awa herself would want these humans to live, wouldn't she? Show a real moral crisis building within Spider. Show him weighing the suffering of one people against another. Show him trying to find guidance from his Na'vi principles and failing. This is a decision he must make. And all that leads us once again to this moment, the choice. And you could have Spider turn his back on all that and heroically choose blue over pink, but so much more interesting to me, so much more potential here comes with a real Isildur moment. Spider chooses power. He chooses to save his dad and reject an avatar. And the movie ends with him returning to Earth to meet his people for the first time. Or if we don't have time for that, at least make a big deal of him going to the colonial human city and joining human society. This franchise badly needs a villain that can carry 3 more sequels. Immortal Quaritch is better than nothing, but if you want 3 more interesting movies, you need to build a more interesting, complex villain. And making Spider, our inverse Jake Sully, into a human savior who intimately understands Pandora and the Na'vi and Jake Sully, who has a history with all of these story elements and baggage with all these story elements, that's really compelling. And possibly they're setting up for this in future movies by starting this relationship with Quaritch here, but if they're going this slow that we didn't get to it at all in this movie, and instead just had this kind of nonsensical outcome with Spider saving his dad, but then also going back to the Sullys as if nothing happened, that's just weird and awkward and leaves everyone super underwhelmed by what could have been a great character. Okay, so that's enough on the human side for now. For fixes 4 and 5, let's look at the Na'vi side. Some big problems, but really there's only one major issue at the root of everything in my opinion. One undeveloped element that caused all the dirtily sloppiness of the narrative. Okay, tell me, what exactly is the Way of Water? I actually went and saw the movie a second time only to see if I could get a straight answer to this. And I don't know, something about breathing from your diaphragm? Let me be clear, I'm not saying every single story needs to have super coherent ideas and themes permeating the entire narrative. When I see like a random James Bond movie or like a SpongeBob episode, I'm not looking for a complex web of interconnected motifs and parallels, but when I see a movie called The Way of Water, I'm expecting to see at least some unified something tying together the plot and character arcs in a prominent way. Give me that much at least. And here in Avatar 2, I don't know what I'm seeing. For example, maybe you look at the main plot arc. Jake tries to protect his family by fleeing to the water tribes, and then in the end he says, I can't save my family by running, and he decides he's gonna stand and fight. Is that the Way of Water? I'm not exactly sure what it has to do with water, or how Jake learned that from the water people or from the water whales. And speaking of those water whales, if that's where we should look to find the Way of Water, their way is pacifism. Violence brings more violence, death leads to more death, and therefore we must never fight. Maybe that's the Way of Water? Although it is weird that the whales are these most intelligent beings on Pandora, objectively objectively, but also to the water people. They're their spiritual guides, essentially. And then as soon as the water people hear that their whales got attacked, they're like, that's it, we are going to war. Don't touch our pacifists or we'll kill you. Or maybe it's this line, the way of water has no beginning and no end, i.e. the point between life and death is an illusion. Actually, wait, no, every song bracelet has its last bead, death is real. Actually, wait, no, Awa holds all her children in her heart, nothing is ever truly lost, death is an illusion. Actually, wait, no, the sea gives and the sea takes, death is real. Wait a second, what about Kiri and Lo'ak, our outcasts? What do we learn from them? What makes you different makes you strong. Is that the way of water? And still, none of this has anything to do with breathing from your diaphragm at all. Man, this is hard. Choose one, Mr. James Cameron. You did it just fine in Avatar 1. All life is connected. That simple idea was behind all the empowerment Jake experienced in learning the Na'vi ways of life, connecting with all these different kinds of animals. It was Jake's plan of connecting all the tribes for the last battle. It was why all the animals came to help in the end. It was arguably why Awa chose Jake in the first place. To the shock of all the Metkayina, even Avatar life is part of this connection between all life. Simple theme integrated into every part of the story. Avatar 2, it's like a dozen different themes that either contradict each other or have nothing to do with each other. They have a whole monologue trying to explain what the way of water is, and somehow it has like too many ideas and not enough. Half the character arcs are not about any of these ideas, half the movie is not about any of these ideas. And meanwhile, there's a perfectly fitting, perfectly meaningful, can we just
be formless?
Can we?
Shapeless.
Why not just...
like water.
Right?
Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Fix number 4, can we just do the classic water symbolism? Half the movie is already about learning to adapt and failing to adapt. It's about people breaking from tradition, breaking from the right way of doing things. We have this flowy, ever-changing water world, as opposed to the super rigid world of rocks and trees that Jake and Neytiri are coming from, with all these rigid ways they think the world works, and rigid ways they do things and making decisions. Make the water people these incredibly adaptive Na'vi, totally different from the Metkayina. I mentioned Ethiopia before. Think Menelik II shocking all of Europe by rapidly modernizing his army and destroying colonialist Italy. Think the Comanche who figured out mounted warfare in less than 200 years. Way, way better than the Europeans ever did after like 2,000 years, 2,500 years. Think about Chief Plentyku of the Crow. Not politically what he did, but his willingness to completely overhaul his tribe's philosophy so that they could spiritually survive in this abruptly changing world around them. That's what the way of water should be like. It's interesting and exciting and compelling on its own, but then we get these extremely emotional responses to it from all of our characters. Jake feels lost with it. It's an identity crisis for him. And Neytiri despises it. It's the opposite of everything she believes. But, and here's fix number 5, we see it all play out heroically and tragically with the Sully kids. First of all, and feel free to disagree with us, I don't see any reason not to combine Lo'ak and Kiri. Both outcasts, both don't have super coherent resolutions to their arcs. Each one saves a parent, but doesn't get down to the core of what's going on with what makes them an outcast. For Lo'ak, it's the scene where he tells Jake to breathe with his diaphragm, and then Kiri's is a little bit better. She also tells Neytiri to breathe with her diaphragm, but then saving her family without any seizures is narratively disappointing. Good for her, but narratively unfortunate. So combine them. Kiak is the one Sully in this movie who should embody the way of water. And I mean in a different way even than the water people. Kiak is just different.
He's different.
And then Neteyam should embody the pre-water Sully way. Neteyam is the son Jake and Neytiri raised to be the ideal Na'vi within their pre-water understanding of what a Na'vi leader was supposed to be. And that fails, and that's why he dies. And maybe Kiak is involved in some way, but it's not Kiak's flaw that causes this, even though it may look that way. It's Neteyam's shortcoming, the shortcoming of Jake and Neytiri's rigid pre-water mindset. And that death is ultimately what convinces Jake and Neytiri that we must adapt. This whole war is a call for Na'vi to evolve from our old ways without losing who we are exactly. And this would probably mean a reversing of Neteyam and Lo'ak's personalities, which does make sense. Neteyam is the super aggressive one, maybe not reckless, but the bold one who always wants to fight, which is very much Neytiri. And Jake too, but very Neytiri. And Kiak is the more spiritual one who's always seen an alternative way to direct confrontation. And this may be seen as cowardly by his brother and by other Na'vi, and that makes him somewhat of an outcast, but not for actual lack of courage. This kid is smart, the kid is open-minded, and fearless when it comes to trying new things. Maybe Neteyam isn't, and it's the Kiak way which leads his parents into the future, into embracing the way of water. And that's what leads them to victory, perfectly symbolized in the loss of one son and the triumph of another. And it's all the while perfectly setting up Kiak to be this heroic figure of what it means to change without losing your identity. And meanwhile, we have our brother Spider, who could not find that balance. Set up perfectly to become big bad villain Spider in Avatar 3 to 5. And again, they're clearly setting up for something bigger with Kiri and Lo'ak right now, and Spider 2, and Jake, and Neytiri, and everyone. And these fixes probably don't jive with that, which is fine. I'm just trying to fix Avatar 2. I'm trying to addressed the problems that needed to be addressed and weren't. And this line that I often hear of, oh, it's setting up for the next movie, that is not a good excuse for leaving your current movie broken. So those are my 5 fixes. Oh wait, I actually forgot one last fix. Stop it with the unobtainium already. I don't care if it's a rock or whale juice, stop it. Stop it. It's simplistic. It's bad writing, bad, stop it. Okay, so those are my 6 fixes. Subscribe, let me know what you thought of Avatar 2 and how you would change things. Support the channel on Patreon. We had our first Patreon group call last week, which was a blast. It was so much fun. We talked about what we were all writing. We did some on-the-spot analysis of one of my favorite scenes ever, and it was so cool hearing everyone's takes. Such a great time, so shout-outs to all of you. Thanks so much to all my patrons and to anyone who couldn't make it. Hope to see you in 3 weeks for the next call. Personal shout-out to Ash M, new $10 patron. Thanks for the support, and thanks for watching, everybody.